Previously on Gears.
The Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel incident that happened yesterday. Now, if you didn't watch the race, you more than likely have listened to either reports, watched it on TV, or you've read something about it where a team order was issued by the team and it was disobeyed.
Yes.
Naughty, naughty, naughty. So I wrote this little piece, and maybe give some perspective. You might agree, you might disagree. I'm not entirely sure. You can check it on our balls.co.za webpage. It's right there. It's also on our Balls Facebook page as well. So go and have a read about it as well. So I would have preferred if Vettel said that he wanted to win at any cost as opposed to apologizing for something he cannot change. For anyone who thinks that team orders and a number one and number two driver don't exist in Mode to Racing are ignorantly naive. This is not merely about team orders, but respect. And if you look at Mercedes, their drivers accepted the team orders, and even though both weren't happy, they respected it. The problem is upset the people in Stuttgart, that Mercedes thing. Because, don't forget, Nico Rosberg, even though his dad is Finnish, is German. And Mercedes-Benz is German. So they're upset because they would have preferred Rosberg to go past Hamilton and perhaps try and push the Red Bulls. Just to let you know that side of it.
Okay, but can I just say something quickly?
Yes, you may.
After the race, I thought it was so awesome how you saw Hamilton and Rosberg walk together, and you could see everything was so cool and so chilled. Well, so it looked.
Yes.
I thought it was very nice.
It was very nice.
And Hamilton, when he said he thought that Rosberg deserved to be up there.
They're such lovely boys. They're so nice.
I love good sportsmen.
They should all go and have a cup of tea together. They race at 300 kilometers an hour, wheel to wheel, and now all of a sudden, let's go and have a cup of tea together. It doesn't work that way. Anyway, Sebastian Vettel did not respect his team nor his teammate. Now, one can argue about racing and let them race. It's a valid argument, but consider a few things. Engines are restricted to 8 per driver per season. Gearboxes are restricted to 5 per driver per season. These are very important variables to consider. If you have a comfortable lead, there is really no reason to overdrive your car or take unnecessary risks in the latter part of the race. Had Hamilton been pressurizing Vettel to such an extent that it made Vettel's position threatened, then I'm sure that Red Bull Racing would have made another call. There was a time when Lewis was close to Vettel, but it really looked like we had a 4-way race for the win. But unfortunately, due to tire wear and fuel issues, the Mercedes threat faded away. There was also the time when Vettel called for the team to get Webber to get out of the way, as Vettel believed he was the quicker driver. This only lasted 3 laps, after which Webber actually pulled away from Vettel and Vettel pulled away from Hamilton. It is very common for teams to decide pre-race that the drivers should maintain their status quo after the final round of pit stops. Of course, this might change during the race, but all teams do look at all possible scenarios pre-race in order to maximize their opportunities. If during the race these scenarios change, then different strategies will be implemented. It's rather simple, actually. When Red Bull Racing knew that there was no further threat from the Mercedes drivers, they gave the order to their drivers to basically bring the cars home in the order they were. This was done to maximize the points and conserve engine and gearbox wear as well. Webber did as instructed, but Vettel saw this as an opportunity. Vettel decided to go for the win, which must have infuriated his teammate. A very risky move by Vettel saw him pass Webber and eventually win the race. It could have gone wrong, and the two could have taken each other out of the race. Granted, it didn't happen, but the team must have been incredibly nervous when Vettel went for the lunge down the pit straight. Lest you forget that these two drivers crashed into each other back in 2010 in Turkey. Okay. Also, bear in mind, with Vettel now going for it, Webber could have turned up the wick, and what happens if both of their engines blew? Team orders have been around since racing started. If you go back to the Fangio Ascari era, if one driver retired because of a mechanical problem, listen to this, their teammate would be called in to hand their car to the lead driver for them to maximize the result. Back in 1982 at Imola, Didier Pironi passed Gilles Villeneuve after they were instructed to hold their positions. This led to such a furore that the two drivers never spoke to each other again, and tragically led to Gilles Villeneuve's death the following race weekend. That is how incensed he was. In 1999, Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard had an understanding that whoever got into the first corner first would win the race. At Spa that year, where the McLarens were so dominant, the two of them touched going into La Source, and I remember because I was there. Amazingly, they didn't take each other out. If you go back to 2002, Ferrari instructed Rubens Barrichello to move out of the way for Schumacher in Austria. It left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth, but it was in the interest of the team that came first. For those who sit and think Schumacher never did these things, let me remind you of Malaysia in 1999. When he returned, he stormed into the lead, but was no longer championship contender, eventually giving the place and moving over for Eddie Irvine. So, these are team orders. Most of these incidents, and many more, could have been avoided if the respect for the team was adhered to. It might not sit well with you, and that is fine. But put yourself in the team's position. They have objectives, and don't deviate from them. Regardless if it is the first race of the season or the last, if the team wants a driver to do something, the driver should do it. Sebastian Vettel was wrong and disrespected his team. That's it.
That was brilliant.
Not bad, eh?
Wow, you're so intelligent.
Not really. Thanks anyway. But you see, that's what it's about. The teams. So if people can sit there and say team orders and you should let them race, it's not that simple. You've got to look at so many different variables. I just still think Webber should have punched him in the face, because that would have been
No, but
front page
I think
headlines.
Webber's a gentleman.
He's an Aussie. He says a lot.
Maybe that's why I think he's a gentleman. You know how I love an Aussie.
They've got a 3-week gap, and they will calm down, and Webber will go and do some surfing, and he will relax, and he will chill, etc., etc. But let me tell you from now on, Webber won't be that kind to Vettel going forward. And Vettel, whether he's lost some fans or whether he's gained some fans for his heroics or whether he was a villain, Vettel's respect up and down the pit lane has now gone to a different level. Other drivers know his character, and other drivers will also use it to their advantage to try and get the better of him. So, there we go.
Weekdays from 12 to 2 p.m. Central African Time.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Gears with Sasha Martinengo on bulls.co.za.